All right, hello everyone, and welcome to Career Launch Week. This is the second day of Career Launch Week. We are talking about resumes and cover letters today. And then tomorrow there will be another presentation on interviewing at the same time, 11 o'clock Mountain Time tomorrow. So if you're available, join in for interviewing as well tomorrow. My name is Lauren. I am a career counselor at Career Services, and so I work a lot with students on helping them develop resumes for lots of different purposes. And we also have a wonderful, I can't remember your title, Lisa, but I'll let you introduce yourself.
Well, that's great. No worries. I'm Lisa Clarke. I'm a senior manager of talent acquisition within the company I work for, American Credit Acceptance. And so I am really excited, Lauren, that you asked me to partner with you on this. Partly because we are new to the Boise area. We are opening an office. We're hearing it'll be about mid-July, but we do have employees working virtually right now out in your area. So thank you. I will say, Lauren, I've probably been in the recruiting industry longer than the individuals with us have been alive. So that's pretty sad, maybe, but also really exciting. Because I think it switched the ownership to me, Lauren. So I'm entering people into the session. I don't know if you're seeing that or not, but I am. So
okay.
I'm just admitting. Good. So I'm really happy to be here and share what I like best, which is talking about roles and talking about resumes and how to make yourself more marketable. So thanks.
Oh, so lots of great industry experience as well that you have an awesome perspective on. Okay, so we're gonna just go ahead and dive right in. And so we'll have you start off.
Okay, well, the first thing I wanna do is literally, this sounds like kindergarten, but we're gonna count to 6. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005, 1006. So that's not a quiz to see if I can count to 6. That is, according to one industry study, the amount of time a hiring manager looks at your resume. And that's pretty scary, I think. So I stress this because it means that your resume has to be sharp. It has to be correct. It has to look good, right? And so everybody that has joined, it is a smaller group. I think that's great. If you have questions, I want to say, please ask them now while we're talking to it. But literally an average of 6 seconds is not long. Think how long it takes you to create your resume or update your resume. I mean, I think it's days, right? You know, and hopefully you're looking at it, you're reviewing it over and over again. And as you advance in your career, you're going to keep continuing to come back to it. So 6 seconds is not long. So we're going to cover a few things to make sure that things that you're doing or you shouldn't be doing to make sure that your resumes stay at the top of those lists or piles, I should say. All right, ding. Okay, so we're gonna look at a few resumes. And guys, I realize everybody is on mute. I don't know, Lauren, if we've done that or if they can unmute, but feel free to answer these. They're gonna be simple, but I'm trying to make a point. So what do you see that could be improved with this resumes? We'll go to the first one. And I'm curious for your feedback, everybody. What do you think about that resume?
It appears pretty long.
It's pretty long. Hugh, was that you? You said it's pretty long?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say should probably be 1 or 2 pages.
Yeah. Do you think this is a resume I received? Now it was probably a year ago now, but that is my desk, nice and clean there. And I literally just fanned it out and took a picture of it. Did I read it all?
No.
No, I didn't. I did glance. I did take the, you can see I scribbled the name out at the top there so no one can see, but I did take longer than 6 seconds, right? Because there is a lot of information there. It's too long, guys. Even for someone who has decades of experience, it's a little too in-depth, right? Okay, so we all agree about that. And what did you say the proper length should be, roughly?
I would think 1 to 2 pages.
1 to 2 pages, yeah. And that depends on where you are in your career. If you're just leaving school, you probably can get it to 1 page unless you have had great internships or experiences, camps, jobs, whatever, but 1 to 2. 2 would be max, I would think. All right, thank you.
Ready for the next one?
Ready. What do you see about this one? And the blue boxes I did put in there to block out names and company names, but these are, this is a resume I received.
Not properly edited.
Detail?
It's not properly edited. Like you have to edit the skills one side, and then the year of experience should be like on the right or the left.
Right, right. What else? What stands out?
For the professional summary, I think there's too much personal information. I think you'd want to keep it more professional as to what you do in the office.
Okay. Do you notice anything else about the professional summary? How's it written?
He added his family. Like he's a family man and wants a job to better his family. It's not part of the professional summary.
Right, right. It's not relevant, right?
Yeah.
Have you heard anything about how you should write a resume? What tense should it be in? Or
Past.
past? And should it be, what person? Should it be first person?
Yeah.
Should you use the word I in it?
No.
Oh,
No, right? I'm not trying to like go back to grammar school because I don't even remember the right terms, right? But it shouldn't, you shouldn't have the I do this, I do that, right? Past tense is good. I like that. So one thing that's like staring out at me, what did this person forget to do with this resume?
I think with the skills, it should have been like a bullet points or something like that. Or
Okay,
yeah.
sure. What's at the top of this resume?
This is the full picture of the resume. The resume came in looking exactly like.
This is how the resume came in looking. They left
What?
it in the template form.
Oh no, I thought that was. I didn't know
Mm-mm.
that was literally a part of the resume. That
Yeah, I
you
didn't know that part was
screenshotted.
No, that I receive this quite a bit. This is how I receive resumes. Guys, remember, use a template. I love it when people use templates. It helps format, right? But take it out or fill in everything. That edit resume or resume help, get that away, right? And I was sharing with Lauren, I can't tell you how many times I receive, you download a resume typically, right? Or upload a resume into a certain website as a submission. I receive grocery lists. I receive expense forms. I receive, who knows, like things I don't even want to see that aren't resumes, but people don't save them. And I guess when they go to upload them, they're not using a naming device and they just click the wrong thing and they don't check. So whether it's a template or just make sure it's the right document. Yes, yikes, exactly. What do you think happens to those 6 seconds?
It
When I see it-
is reduced to 0.
It reduces to 0. It really does. If someone attached their grocery list, I feel for them because maybe they took their resume to the store, right? But yeah, and I'm not making this up. Okay, thanks, Lauren. We can go to the next one then. So this is one that I'm curious for your opinions on this one. And I did not take the name off because I think this is a beautiful resume. This is something that we did receive probably a couple years ago. What are your thoughts here? There's no wrong answer. Picture's very professional. Maybe she'd enter an interview like that, right? No. What do you think about that? I'll just kind of start. What do you think about the color? Is that good, bad?
I think because she's a illustrator, that really gives it like some, room to be more creative. Like with
Yes.
the picture, like I definitely wouldn't do that because I'm trying to be an accountant. But
Yeah.
if you're a digital illustrator, definitely I would see that as more appropriate.
Right. And I appreciate that. Thanks, Hugh, for sharing. There is no wrong answer here. As an illustrator, this is what you're seeing today. The more creative, the better. But absolutely, thanks for sharing your aspirations of being an accountant. I think if you sent this off to a CPA firm, I don't know if they're going to give you 6 seconds. You know, it's just different industries, right? The color, and even look down on the left-hand side where it's the skills, and it's like colored in dots. Like she's showing her level of doing certain skills, and it's a visual effect. Again, I think that's based on the industry. Hugh, I don't know if you sent in to an accounting firm and you had that, like what they would do. I'm not sure. So this one is one that we actually did consider. We moved forward with because the role was, you know, a graphic design role, right? It's perfect. It fits that world. But I like throwing this in here because it throws you off guard a little bit. Think of the industry you're applying for, think of the role, and match the resume. She may want to have a more formatted resume if she's applying to a different type of company. You know, it all depends on the role and the company too. Okay.
I'll say with this one, like, I teach a class and a resume assignment's required, and I see a lot of resumes like being designed on Canva, and there's just a lot of really creative, fancy templates out there. And so, I've seen majors like business, human resources using these templates that are more pretty and creative because they look good and they're easy. However, as Lisa was saying, know your industry, just because it doesn't matter how pretty it looks. Like if I can't read the content clearly, or I can't get how you're qualified for this position, it doesn't matter.
That's a really good point. Watch how busy the resume is. Yeah. Yeah. Because again, those 6 seconds, you want to be able to draw the eye in right away. Okay. Next one. Okay, this is another. What do you see here? Do you like the formatting? It's not bad, right? A little bit of color, kind of getting creative. And this is a local one to my area. And it is actually a candidate that's submitted. So if you are a call center agent at AT&T, look right under the experience, but you spell it call canter agent. But at the bottom, you say that you are a perfectionist. What's wrong with this resume? I see a smile, Caleb. I like it. Like you catch that, right? Watch yourself. Look at how.
Yeah, but I mean, you see that all the time. I mean, I did human resources in the Army, and misspelling and typos, man, they are everywhere. And after you spend years reviewing documents, I can't not help but find it. And they are literally everywhere, even all over like BSU's website. And every single time I see them, I just cannot help but see it immediately.
Yeah, so right under that, this person is a teller at BB&T from February. I mean, it's a month, people know how to spell it, right? But I agree. I've noticed that 2 typos all over. Yes. So is that okay? Does that make it okay on your resume to have typos?
No.
No. Also, while we're looking at this one, I think Caleb brought up a good point. It's everywhere, right? I mean, we are communicating through text. Text is a much simpler sentence structure, right? Should we write our resumes like that?
No.
No. Should we communicate through email or text to companies like that?
No.
No. Yeah. Now, as a recruiter, I am using text more often to reach out to candidates, but I am curious how that candidate will respond. If I start to get a lot of, you know, just acronyms or this or that, I may not understand what they're saying, you know, so just take the time and respond. But yeah, Caleb, I think it's unfortunate. I think there's no reason a resume should have a typo with the options that are out there to spell check, right? So this person, while they say they're a perfectionist, I think it's just kind of comical because they didn't catch their own errors. And that's, Sally, that's a very good point. Sally says it could be English isn't their first language. So what do you think happens there? Do you think that's okay? Do you think, what would your expectations be from a company perspective?
Well, in the Army, we have a lot of people who English is not their first language, and I'm afraid there's no exceptions made. you're expected to work and communicate in English, unless of course you're being hired for a non-English speaking role. But even then, usually it's a translator, and so you're expected to know English. So I'm afraid there's really no forgiveness in that area, at least not in the Army.
And I hear that. I do think it also depends on the role. So Sally, if this particular person applied for a customer service role where they're emailing customers all the time. So I am very leery to put this person into a position unless we have templates and they're just filling in the blanks. But if it is a role where they're not communicating or it's not as crucial, absolutely, we're going to look at the specific skill set. I may call them out on it though. I'm a pretty forward recruiter in that sense. And I'd say, hey, so-and-so, did you catch the mistakes on your resume? I literally received a resume 2 days ago from a director level person. And I called her out on, she said, I'd like to relocate to Houston. And I wrote her back and said, that's great, I'm in South Carolina. So are you still interested in relocating to South Carolina, or was that? And she wrote right back. It got that person's attention. And yes, it was a mistake. She hadn't updated her resume. So I'm not just sharing this with, you know, a couple years out of school. I mean, it happens. That person had 15 or so years of experience. And I think at the end of the day, she's probably like, thanks, man, I got to go check my resume now. Okay, so there's one more that I just wanted, and this is a blurb from a resume. So the below is the detail about an internship. I want to see if you catch. So it's an internship that the individual held for 2 summers. So they did the internship, went back to school, did the internship, and then went back to school. What is questionable? What would cause concern from a hiring leader? Look at the dates.
I'm seeing that, yeah, the date seems to imply that you actually worked there for a continuous period of a little more than a year and not
Yes,
like just summer employment.
absolutely. And it is okay to say, you know, May to August, or May to June, whatever it is. Don't fear it being a short amount of time. You're saying it's an internship, right? Or summer employment or whatever it is. But thanks, Forrest. Yeah. So in conversation, this is someone we interviewed, and in conversation, it came out, but then the hiring manager started to doubt the person because, well, are they fibbing on purpose or did they just not know how to write? And it also says they work Suzuki Motors Administration. So that makes you think maybe a corporation. Well, this person was at a dealership. So don't exaggerate where you're working, because the more that the hiring leader talked to this person, and it was a legitimate role, right? Just speak to it, you know, how it is. Don't exaggerate. Don't get caught, because then it leads to doubt. So I wrote a note on that. It will catch up with you at some point. Okay. So that's it for the examples of the resumes. There's just a little list I wanted to go over as well. Again, common sense. You want to choose proper words. Don't include difficult technical words or jargon unless you can speak to them specifically. Hugh, I'll point you out again. You said accounting. There are specific terms in accounting that you are learning in classes that you absolutely could have in your resume. You want to represent that though, right? But you wouldn't want to put things that you can't speak to, because again, you're going to get caught up in that. Do use concise and direct English. Don't overuse your words. Make sure you can speak to them. Again, that piece of paper is how the individual is going to frame their questions, and they're going to dig into what you have. Always include contact information. This seems like common sense, right? Can't tell you how many times I get a resume without ways to reach out to them. Sometimes you know it's in an application as well, so you know that person is saved. I wanted to point out as well, I'm also seeing a lot of resumes where the address is being removed, and I get it. That's that's fine, right? Safety, comfort level, totally good with that. Now though, if your resume indicates that you have worked in a certain state, but you're trying to get employment in another state, you need to tie that in somehow. Maybe it's a cover letter. Maybe it is putting at the top of your resume, seeking to relocate to XYZ. But it's okay if you don't put your address. I don't blame you, right? But make sure you do have email or your LinkedIn account or whatever represented at the top. And then do focus on relevant skills and experiences. And then we already talked about length. Any questions at all about some
Yeah, I
of
have a
these?
question. I have a question about the references. Yeah, I guess Sally too. I've always, at least in my experience, I've been told, oh, have your second page be the references. Again, I'm coming from the Bay Area, moving to Idaho, so maybe there's a cultural difference. But why not include references?
I think and I think that is, it's actually probably a play on words. I don't mind that you include your references. That second page would be great. You're already providing, just in case the company's going to ask. I think that means like references in the specific resume. Like you're referencing this, but the other people don't know what you're talking about. So make sure you're just being clear. I would, and Sally, thanks for pointing that out. That's not what you've heard. Okay. To not or to use, I'm curious. And companies are different, Hugh. If you do put references, I want to make sure that they are references that you have contacted and they're up to date. Up to date people. I have reached out to references and they're like, I haven't talked to that person in years. Oh, okay. So they took the time to make sure your references are ready and aware that people could be reaching out. Anytime I would apply for employment, I'd reach back out to those individuals. Hey, just letting you know, you may get contacted. And by the way, could you let me know if they contact you? As a full 360.
I've always coached with references like on the resume to have it be a separate page, because your resume space is very valuable real estate and you want that directly tied to how you're qualified to the position. So don't use space on your resume to put your references.
Yes.
Use that as a separate page. So hopefully that answered that question too.
I like that. Yeah. And again, there are always different opinions on that. I'm not saying mine is the end all be all. Sally, you were told to put it in the body. Whatever, I mean, it is your piece of work, but Lauren, I like that the way you worded that, like use that first page for everything that you need to sell about yourself. Cool. Any other questions? No. Awesome.
All right, so Lisa gave great examples of kind of what stands out on your resume, how to like make your resume look clean, professional. Those are all very important things, and kind of the format and what stands out to recruiters. So now I'm going to be talking a little bit more about the content of your resume. How do you write these bullet points? What do you put on your resume? So that way you're making sure that you're really standing out to a recruiter. So first thing is, what is experience? What can you put on your resume? I get this question all the time from students, especially students who maybe don't have a lot of experience because they just haven't had time to do an internship, to do a volunteer experience, because they just have to work a minimum wage job just to pay the bills. And that's totally understandable. But there's lots you can put on your resume. So job, even if you are holding just any kind of summer position or part-time position just to pay your bills, that's okay. Put that on your resume, because there's lots of transferable skills that you can really pull from that experience that could relate to a variety of different positions. If you did any kind of internships, volunteer experience, service learning, that looks great on a resume. Study abroad even. But class projects is another big thing that you can put on a resume. And I tell students, you don't want to try and sell it as an experience. You want to make it clear that it is a project or it's a course that you took. However, there's lots of things that you do in class that directly relate to the field you might be trying to get into. So for students who feel like they haven't had a lot of experience, I'll use accounting as an example. If you didn't do an internship in accounting, that's okay. Use the projects and things that you worked on in class and talk about your knowledge in that field and the skills that you have related to what that employer is looking for. So lots of different things you can put on a resume. Targeting your resume is super important. Lisa might be able to talk to this a little bit better than I can, but employer tracking, applicant tracking systems are things that employers are using, and every company uses them a little bit different, but some companies are using these to scan through resumes. They're getting lots and lots of applications, and it can be very overwhelming for someone to go through all of them. So they might be using the applicant tracking systems to scan for certain keywords to help make that list of resumes more manageable to people who are exactly qualified or have the skills relevant for what they're looking for. Anything you want to include on that, Lisa?
I think you're right on. And I meant to say that earlier, you know, when you're picking your jargon words, your buzzwords, make sure they are absolutely relevant. You know, I know some people even update their resumes as they're reading more requisitions or job postings out there, and they see good phrases. Only if they are relevant to what you can share about yourself, make sure that is, because they're called Boolean searches. And that's how we on LinkedIn, I'm running Boolean searches every day. Keywords, phrases to identify what we're looking for. And that narrows it down. If you don't have it on your profile on LinkedIn or on your resume, it's going to drop you out of that list. Yeah.
And this is where it's important just to really take time with your resume. You know, we talked about job search yesterday, but when you're applying for jobs, don't be the type of person that applies for 50 jobs in 1 week, just applying for everything. Like, take the time to really focus and target your materials, because it's going to pay off better than just submitting a general resume. So look at that job description, pull words out that are relevant to you. The purpose of your resume is to get the interview. The purpose of your resume is not to get you the job. It's to get them interested, show how you're qualified. So you do not need to have every little detail about you on your resume. It's a very targeted piece that you're submitting.
When it comes to finding the buzzwords for the ATS tracking system, how would you go about that? Would you just look at the job description of the job and then kind of play off of that?
Yep, absolutely. This is a great introduction to this slide. Thank you. So here's kind of what I'm looking for. So like, let's say this is a job description. I'm looking under those minimum qualifications, preferred qualifications, the job responsibilities. I'm looking like anywhere in that job description. I can pull anything that is closely related to what I have done. And you're also not going to match the qualifications exactly. Most employers write job descriptions with very high expectations or very broadly. And so it's okay if you don't match every single qualification. If you meet majority of those qualifications and you're super interested in this position, you should apply. But here's how I would go through that job description. So let's say these two are bullet points in the job description: prepare and deliver sales presentations to new and existing customers to sell new advertising programs, and explain to customers how specific types of advertising will help promote their products. So I'm just taking keywords, those action verbs. It's a great way to use action verbs from the job description into your resume. I'm also looking at like skill words. I'm looking at adjectives. I'm looking at like anything that I can kind of grab onto, because I haven't done these things exactly, but I've done something similar. And so I'm going to take the words that I can. And don't copy and paste the wording from the description and then paste it in your resume and just like change like 1 or 2 words. Like, no, you want to adapt it to your experience, but you want to use similar language. So here's kind of an example. So if we take that from a job description, explain to customers how specific types of advertisement will help promote their products. Again, I haven't done that specifically, but I have talked to customers through a retail position. I'm talking to them about products. So I'm going to take that. And we'll talk a little bit about this on how to make your resume stronger, but a general resume might say something like answer questions about merchandise. You're addressing kind of what they're talking about, but you're not using that language that's really catching their attention. So you want to make it stronger, and you want to say something like explain to customers how they can use different types of products. So again, I'm using those 2 words from that job description, but I'm telling it how I'm doing it from my position. Does that make sense? Cool. I'm seeing some head nods. Good. So now kind of getting into writing those bullet points. I typically recommend using bullet points more than paragraphs, just because bullet points are typically a little bit easier to read through, scan through, and they just stand out a little bit better. Paragraphs are sometimes used to save you space. Do you have a preference, Lisa, on paragraphs or bullet points?
I love bullet points. Easy just to follow through.
Good to know. And I've always heard that like bullet points aren't actually like fully complete sentences, so you don't put periods at the end. Is that like a little attention to detail that matters to you or not?
I read that when you sent it over to me and I went, oh, okay. So I have not marked anyone off if they've had them or hadn't had them, but I like that you don't need them. I agree. It's a fragment, right? It's a thought to me. So
Yeah. I don't think it's like it's not going to make or break your resume. But I do get this question from students. Should I put a period at the end? Should I not? Whatever you do, just be consistent with it. If you're putting periods on some of them, put periods on all of them.
Yep.
Just those little things, that attention to detail. So in thinking about what to put in those bullet points, this is what I work with students the most on resumes. Your resume can look beautiful, but if you do not have good, strong bullet points, it's not going to help you stand above other candidates. So think about these three things. What did you do? And kind of try and get a little specific, just say answered questions. How did you do it? What happened? Or what was the outcome? What was that result? Through these bullet points, you also kind of want to show, here's how I added value. Here's what I accomplished. A lot of bullet points that I see tend to be very task oriented or kind of like general. So for example, I might be working on a resume with someone who has worked in a restaurant and they put in a bullet point, bus tables, talk to customers, and served food. It's like, okay, yeah, that's good information. However, I kind of already assume when I see your position title saying a waitress, I kind of already assume those tasks that you're doing. So give me more information. Tell me about how you're interacting with those customers. Tell me how you're working in a fast-paced environment. What about working with the team? What does that look like? Those are kind of information that stand out to an employer and how it's relevant to what they're looking for. So here's some examples. So I've seen this on a resume: wrote reports, typed memos, and various other administrative duties. Again, this is kind of getting at like, here's a list of the tasks and things that I've done. Good information. But here's what we want to make. Created several monthly statistical reports using Microsoft Excel for use by manager, I can't really read the full thing, manager in department budgeting and projections. So that's a lot more specific. That's telling me, the specific tool you're using to do it, what exactly you're doing, and what was the purpose of this? What was the result? How did it add value? So that level of detail is what you're kind of looking for. Anything you'd like to add, Lisa?
Yes, just one point, and I don't necessarily think it's relevant on this one, but when you can make them quantitative, add numbers in there. What was your accomplishment? Hugh, I keep coming back to you with accounting. Like, did you reduce something, did you do month-end close? Did you reduce that from this days to this days? That really catches people's eyes. Even as a waitress, I was thinking, how could you make that quantifiable? But really, what did you do to make improvements while you were there? Maybe you can turn that into something like that too. But I really like that this makes a difference. I see so many of that first, the before example, but the after really catches the eye. Shows the difference, right? The outcome, like you said, Lauren.
Perfect. So again, think about those outcome statements, achievements, skills gained, how do you use skill, and yeah, quantify anytime you can. That definitely stands out. So here's another one. So I kind of want your feedback. So worked with small children. What's missing? What else would you add to this?
Just any detail about what the work was. Like, was it like childcare? Was it like mentorship? What was it?
Mm-hmm. So more specific on what you're doing. Anyone else have any other opinions?
I guess maybe try and make it relevant to what you're applying for. I mean, who cares if you work with small children? Why are you telling me that you work with small children?
Yep, exactly. Relate it back to that position. So yeah, I definitely see bullet points like this, and it leaves questions in the employer's mind, and so you don't want that. So we might do something a little bit better and say, created and implemented a personal safety program for small children. That gets a little bit more at what you're doing. And then again, we can always make it a little bit better and have that outcome and say created and implemented, back a little bit, a safety personal safety plan or program for small children, which is utilized by 3 school districts. That's really quantifying that. Here's what I created and here's how it's useful. Here's what I achieved. Here's the result and outcome. So that can definitely make a big impact. Any questions on how to write those bullet points?
Not really on how to write the bullet points per se, but just out of idle curiosity, because the Army uses quantification extensively, but every time you use it, we would say you have to prove it. If you use a quantified statement, you have to have some form of documentation to back up that you actually did it. Does that apply here?
Man, are you waiting for me?
Yes.
Caleb, that's a really good question. I mean, the last thing I want is someone to like send in a 10-page paper of here's how I quantified these points. But if you are saying it, you do need to be able to back it. I may say, Caleb, tell me more about this. And you need to, okay, well, specifically that was a project with boom, 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 boom. And the term we use is we're looking for sizzle answers. So say Caleb has a bullet point that says, generated this much revenue, you know, you're a retail, working in retail, generated this much revenue during, you know, the Friday after Thanksgiving, right? Blah, blah, blah. Met sales goals, blah, blah. So I would say, Caleb, talk to me a little bit more about that Friday after Thanksgiving, you know, walk me through that. And if he's like, well, we did this and it was great. And so that's could be a sizzle, a surface answer, right? So the interviewer should be digging in. Caleb, who's we? Well, actually, there were 3 other people and I kind of sat in the back room the whole time. You know, like maybe that person wasn't even involved. So Caleb, I agree. You have to be able to say, well, this is what I specifically did. I generated this, I did this. I think you also have to be careful at that point though, is if it is a team environment, you're not taking too much of that ownership, right? Was it really a team and what was the portion you had in that? So I don't know.
That's what we run into all the time. They'll say 5th squad took such and such hill, and then every single member in 5th squad will say, yep, I took that hill all on my own. And everybody's like, what about the 6 other people that were with you?
Right. So that
You
is the
have to
balance.
say that I was the RTO or the radio operator that took this hill, or I was the heavy weapons operator on this squad that took the hill. You'd have to be more specific, but you get a lot of people that do relatively general claims of teamwork as their own.
Right.
It kind of seems like splitting hairs, but I guess they cared about it in the Army a lot. I don't know if civilians do.
Well, I think you need to be able to to speak to what you put there. And if you put it there and it really wasn't you, you're not the one that accomplished that, you're going to get called out on it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely had in an interview, I had like a sentence that I kind of added as fluff in my cover letter and I got called out on it in an interview and had to explain it and it was not fun. So anything you put in your resume and cover letter is 100% fair game in an interview.
Right. I think from the opposite perspective, so I mentioned sizzle or surface level, just check that resume, check your bullet points to see if you can speak to everything in depth. And if you can't, do you really need that bullet point there? Was it really something you did or is it something someone on your team did? Yeah.
Great question so far. And federal resumes are different. That's a good point about like civilian and Army and differences. So if you are ever applying for a job through USA Jobs or a government federal position, they do require a lot of detail and a lot of support for the things that you're claiming that you're doing. So just be mindful that those resumes are a little bit different if you're ever in that industry. Okay, I'm going to move on to cover letters. But again, if you have any questions about resumes, we'll have some time for questions. So cover letters. I get a lot of questions about should you do a cover letter? What's the purpose of a cover letter? If the job requires that you to do a cover letter, absolutely, you need to do a cover letter. If the job is saying it's optional to do a cover letter, I typically recommend to do a cover letter because it can give them more information about you versus other candidates. However, make sure it's done well and it's done right because a cover letter can hurt you. If you have a wonderful resume but a bad cover letter, it's going to hurt you. So make sure that if you're going to submit a cover letter, it's going to be done right and it looks really good too. Why you want to do a cover letter, or like what can include to a cover letter. This is a little bit more personal. It's more about kind of your passions, your interests, why you want this position, why you're interested in this company, a little bit more on your experience. Whereas your resume is very much like, here's my job, here's what I did, here's what I accomplished, and like kind of more of a list of a lot of things that you've done. The cover letter is going to be a little more specific to maybe 2 to 3 things that you've done that you want to talk about. Cover letter can be a great place to introduce new things. Let's say you want to talk about a class project, but you didn't really do it in the resume, but you want to talk about it in the cover letter. That could be a way to kind of bring in some new information that's not really usable on a resume. We have some cover letter examples on our website that I can include a link to at the end of the presentation as well, that has like a really good description of like what should be in each paragraph and then an example of what that looks like. But kind of just an overview of some of the information you want in there. Typically that first paragraph is kind of like the name of the position that you're applying to, why you're interested or how you heard about the position, kind of just a brief introduction. Make sure you always check the position and the company name. Lisa told me about it. I've heard this from lots of other employers. It does happen where you forget to change the name of the company or the position title. And again, that looks very badly. So make sure that you're double checking those details. Then you want to kind of move into your experience. And this is the bulk of the cover letter, talking about your experience, the skills that you can bring, your experience that you've done, and you want to provide good detail. So I might have a paragraph talking about a class project, and that's an experience I want to kind of talk about and relate. So I'm going to talk about, in this class, I learned about how to do X, Y, and Z. And then I want to kind of provide some examples or some kind of support for what I'm saying. If I'm in my cover letter saying, through my class, I learned how to communicate effectively and manage projects on a timeline. I want support for that. How did you do that? What did that look like? Give me an example. And that's kind of the next part of those sentences in that paragraph, supporting what it is that you're claiming from your skills or your experience that you have. So just make sure you're always supporting. So I might have one paragraph kind of focused on the project I did, then I might have the next paragraph kind of focused on my work experience and a project that I did and what I did and how I did it, again, providing more of that support. And that might be 2 to 3 paragraphs, depending on what kind of experience you want to outline. Or it could kind of be the same thing of like, I am really good at leadership, if I'm claiming that skill. Again, that paragraph is going to be focused around the experience, my knowledge that gives me that skill. Biggest thing I see in cover letters is just like moving from one point to the other point to the next point, and it just kind of becomes like a list of things and no real support. So just make sure you're always providing examples or more detail off the claims you're making in the cover letter. And lastly, the part that should really be in this cover letter is, why do you want to work for this company? This is where it pays off to do research about the company and show in the cover letter that you've taken the time to do research and learn about the company, and that you have a connection, that you really want to work here at this company for this reason. It doesn't have to be like super extensive, can just be a paragraph, a few sentences, but it does really help to make a connection.
Hey, Lauren, I have a question about when it comes to why do I want to work for this company? How selfish could I be? Like for an accountant, I need to have 2 years of experience under a CPA after I graduate in order to study for the CPA and get my license. But how can I demonstrate that I want to be moving my career forward, but at the same time not be too much like, oh, this is only about me, because it's still about me being of service to the company?
I'll answer this question and see if Lisa has any feedback as well. So I think, well, that's your main goal. And like for a lot of people, your main goal is to have a job to pay well or to get you experience, but you don't want to like be explicit about that, because there should be other reasons maybe why you want this job. So in the cover letter, like this company specific, like there's other companies where you could work under to get that experience for your licensing. So like, why them over another company is kind of how I would probably approach that. I think it's okay in your cover letter to be honest and say, I'm really excited about this opportunity as a professional growth opportunity to learn and develop. But why specific this company versus another company that can offer you the same experience?
Okay, so you can kind of subtly indicate like, yeah, I am going to be working here because this is sort of in my lane of where I want my career to go, but then kind of just leave it there. Like, not just be like, oh, I want to be paid this much and all that. Yeah. Okay.
I think you want to make sure, Hugh, that you're not being too blatant in the sense of, I just want to be at this company for this, and then I'm gone, you know. And while that could be the case, you know, you just don't want to, you want to give the impression that you're there thinking potential long-term or next steps. At the same time, you know, if I'm reading that cover letter, I'm the one reading it, I'm thinking, well, this could be a win-win because Hugh needs us for this and we need Hugh for this. But it's all in the tone in which you've written it. So Lauren, thank you for sharing that. You know, if it's coming off a little too aggressive, maybe I'd back off. But if it's just, you know, kind of subtle, but stating it, they're going to ask, they should ask that. They should dive into that in the interview stage, right? And learn more about, well, what are your needs? What are you looking for long-term? So Lauren, I agree absolutely with what you said too.
Okay. Thank you both.
Awesome. I think I forgot to throw in a question slide, but now this is the end of the presentation. So we are here to answer any questions that you have about resumes, cover letters. You have Lisa here who has awesome advice and perspective. So take advantage.
Do you guys all have your resumes written?
So what if I'm applying to a position I don't have like the technical experience, but like I have an idea based on my class, like my class work. Do I like include in my cover letter that, oh, I haven't done this technically in an industry, but then I've learned it in class. Like, does that count? Something like that.
Sure, I think so. Classwork, yes. I mean, especially if you're, so I think there are two angles. If you're applying to a role that states it needs 6 years of experience doing that, then maybe you're a little off, but right? But if you're applying to a role that's within reach of that, absolutely share in your cover letter, like Lauren said, attach your experience to why you feel you're a good fit for that role or that company. Yeah. I'd also keep in mind, other companies may frown at me saying this, but you know, our job postings are showing what our qualifications are, but often look for the words of preferred. This is preferred, or this is, you know, required. If it's preferred, go for it, apply, right? Even if you're close, because that's just kind of where we think we want to be. It doesn't mean that's where we need to be. And right now it's the market to apply, because I think companies are going to be expanding what their needs are, because it is a tight market for employers. It is your market right now. You have the world right at your fingertips. So I would not apply because you're hesitant. I would just make sure you have that backing in that cover letter to share why you're selling yourself. Good question.
I was just wondering your opinion on including your hobbies and that kind of stuff, kind of projects you've done in that regard on resumes and cover letters if they're relevant. To kind of give you my use case, I'm in kind of the IT software engineering sphere, and I'm working on applying for a firm that works with some technology that I have just kind of through my hobbies, like a license to work with like different, like use different stuff like it. I have a number of projects I can kind of speak to through it. Is that something that should be included on there and would be relevant?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I think for coming out of school, I search for that on resumes, because those are transferable skills too, right? Maybe you were on a team, maybe you were in a club, maybe you started a club. Those are all transferable skills that relate to the different companies in different ways. But first, what you're talking about directly relates. Yeah, that is experience in my mind. You know, and can you just adapt to that environment of that company? Absolutely. Now, I don't have hobbies on my resume, but I'm a lot older and I don't think people would want to see my hobbies on my resume. Frankly, I don't know what my hobbies are anymore. And, you know, so they're not as relevant, but at your point in your careers, I absolutely would put them, but I'm using the word relevant. Make sure it doesn't trigger a conversation that could go down the wrong path too.
Yeah, that's typically my advice to students is don't use it as a filler on your resume. Like if you have extra space on your resume and just need to fill it out, like don't use hobbies and interests to do that. Typically leave hobbies and interests off your resume unless it is like directly related to the job and the company and the organization and what they do, then absolutely. Like the example you gave, Forrest, I work with Boise National Forest for a presentation, and they said like if you are into camping and backpacking and spending long days out in the wilderness, like that's exactly related to the job, so put that on your resume.
Cool. Thank you much. Appreciate the info.
Good question so far. Anything else?
What would be considered a short-term stay at a job? Would it be 6 months or a year?
I guess my follow-up question is, are you thinking how to word that? Because I'd think either way, you want to put that on your resume and just be able to speak to it. I'd like to see longer stints, of course, but if you have a story to back it up, right now, COVID, people couldn't help, getting laid off. And so when someone says that to me, I'm not going to dig in and go, oh, really? Okay, apologies on that. Tell me a little bit about what happened with that role or talk to me a little bit more through that. So Hugh, I don't think 6 months could be seen, like if I looked at it as short, but then I find out that story, that explains it, right?
I think I'm asking because I may so I just got my associates in accounting at a community college and I'm transferring into Boise State. And I'm trying to get a bookkeeping, AR, entry level work just to build that experience. But it's been a bit difficult. So I'm thinking I may just go for a receptionist job somewhere just so I can just get a job and then get somewhere where I can get experience, build the references. But then when I would find, that bookkeeping job, I would leave this job for that one. So I'm concerned like, oh, if you only stayed at this place for 2 months, how, trustworthy are you or any of that sort of stuff?
I think it's the story behind it, so hopefully you'd be speaking with someone that would understand. And when you just shared that with me, what I'm thinking is, wow, this person's going to balance school and work. That's pretty cool. Those are two skill sets right there that are transferable because you spoke to the action behind what you have on the resume. So, yeah.
Okay. So as long as it's basically like a reasonable explanation, especially with COVID, like I'm sure most employers would say, okay, it makes sense that things were a bit rocky for a year.
Yeah, and
good questions. I'm posting in the chat a link to our website that has resume and cover letter resources. There's videos you can watch. There's handouts that you can download. They're really great resource, have a lot of awesome detail in there. So if you want more on resumes and cover letters as well, that's a good website to check out.
Great.
Any questions? I'll put, Lisa, if you want to put your email in the chat, if you're open to it, I'll put my email in the chat as well. Feel free to reach out to us with questions that you have. Within Career Services, we offer appointments. We're offering appointments all summer long, online, phone, video. So if you want help with any cover letter, resume, anything like that, let us know and we're happy to help you.
And feel free to find me on LinkedIn and connect too. Yeah. Hugh, we're opening an office if you're looking for a part-time job.
I take you up on that.
I'm not going to sell ACA, but I'm more interested if you guys have any questions at all, even just your resumes and you're looking for a different industry. I told Lauren, I said, so a big word for us is fulfillment and what fulfills you in your day. And this is what fulfills me, seeing people become successful and moving forward in what they want because they've learned little tidbits along the way. That's what makes my day special. So Lauren, I really appreciate you inviting me and well, I know we kind of raised our hands and said, hey, let us be a part of things. So thank you for giving us a shot. And I had fun today.
Yeah, this has been fun. Hopefully you all got great information and reach out to us if you want any more. Awesome. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Boris. Bye.